Good afternoon, everyone. I want to welcome you to the Cholangiocarcinoma Foundation Thursday afternoon webinar. Today we're going to talk about Map It Forward, real-world genomics, and a study launch that we are conducting with our partner, Citizen. Next slide. I just want to talk a little bit about our relationship with our partner, Citizen. We've been in partnership with them for about a year. We started encouraging our patients to request their medical records through Citizen, I think end of summer, last fall, and have expanded into several different opportunities. Today we're going to talk about a study research opportunity that we have, and going to share all the details with you, and I will introduce you to our I don't know what the word I'm looking for is, the people who are going to do the webinar today. And I also want to talk about opportunities that are coming. We touched a little bit about this, I know, on some of our support groups in the last couple weeks about clinical trial finder opportunities that are going to be available coming soon through Citizen. When you upload your records, they will be able to match you based on inclusion-exclusion criteria and the records that you have uploaded. And then also just the importance of having your medical records available to you to be able to share for second opinions, for clinical trials, and for your personal reference. And then once those medical records are uploaded, you also have the ability to consent to share your records for research purposes, for the Cholangiocarcinoma Foundation, for the patient registry, and also for opportunities like the one we're going to be talking to you all about today. So with that in mind, I want to go ahead and introduce you to our hosts today. We have Alexa Burke, Head of Real World Evidence for Citizen. Alexa has a master's in Head of Real World Evidence at Citizen. Alexa has a BA in Psychology from Barnard College, Columbia University, and an MA in Cognitive, Social, and Developmental Psychology from the New School for Social Research. Alexa has worked in health research for nearly 20 years, including health outcomes research, design, and management positions at Memorial Sloan Kettering and at top pharmaceutical and medical device companies, managing large-scale global clinical trials. Most recently, Alexa was a senior director at Cantor Health, leading the design and execution of multiple health economics and outreach research and real-world evidence studies with a variety of sponsors across disease areas, including oncology and rare disease. Alexa has co-authored several journal articles in the oncology research literature, including publications in the Journal of Clinical Oncology Radiology and the Journal of Cancer Education. We also have with us today Ellie Brimble, Head of Clinical Operations at Citizen, where she manages the transformation of unstructured clinical documentation in normalized, structured, and portable data sets. Ellie is a certified genetic counselor with an expertise in rare neurogenic disorders. Most recently, Ellie was a clinical assistant professor for neurology and co-director of the Neurogenomics program at Stanford, where she was involved in the development and implementation of clinical and research programs. Ellie holds a Master of Science degree in molecular genetics from the University of Toronto, as well as a Master of Science degree in genetic counseling from Boston University. Ellie is on the scientific advisory board of FoxG1 Research Foundation and SYNGAP Research Fund. And with that, I will turn it over to Alexa and Ellie.
Hi, everyone. It's such a pleasure to be with you today. I'm just going to give a very quick overview on what Citizen is, our platform. Some of this may be very familiar to you, but in general, our function is to partner with patients to power them with their own information. So we have a cycle where we leverage the HIPAA right of access to collect medical records on your behalf, including things like doctor's notes, genomic testing reports, imaging findings, and we use a combination of machine learning and human-directed abstraction to pull out the pieces of information that are most critical, structure them and normalize that information, and then present it back to you in a way that is meaningful and digestible. And then on the back end, you are able to choose who you share that with. So perhaps it's with a caregiver, perhaps it's with an advocacy organization like the Cholangiocarcinoma Foundation, or perhaps it's with an academic institution or industry partner. So our sort of whole output at the very end is that we create research-ready data that is structured, coded. We can ask questions of that data, and you can move it to wherever platform you would like. I'm actually going to start off with sort of a genetics 101 to make sure that we're all talking about the same thing in the same way. So to take us right back to the beginning, a gene is really just a section of DNA that codes for an instruction in the body. Each gene is thought of as a string of chemical letters. So they're made up of base pairs called A, G, T, or C. The sequence that these letters occur in our genetic instructions is important to make sure that the instruction stored within the gene is accurate. Most of the genes in our body code for molecules called proteins. These proteins perform important jobs throughout our cells, so they can make chemical reactions, they can act as signals from different parts of the body or different parts of the cell to one another, and they can form structures among many other functions in our body. Sometimes there can be changes to the sequence of our DNA, also called mutations, that change a cell's behavior, causing it to become cancerous. So a single change like this, where we're seeing a letter C being replaced for the letter G, might create an environment that leads to uncontrolled cell division, which is represented here with this little green cell, resulting in sort of a tumor state. We have biomarker testing that we can use to try and understand a person's diagnosis better. So in one case, we can use genomic or genetic testing, which is looking for differences in the DNA sequence that we know can contribute to human disease. Some of the genetic changes we look for are inherited, and they might increase risk for certain cancers. Other genetic changes are only found in the tumor and might inform treatment decisions from your clinician team. There are different ways to perform biomarker testing. Some testing is actually done in the blood, and so we might be looking at pieces or fragments of DNA that are coming from the tumor, or we're looking at the DNA that you're born with and is present in every single cell of the body. Other types of genetic or genomic testing might be done on the tumor itself. So we're looking specifically at markers that make up the character of that tumor. This is really important for cholangiocarcinoma, as we're learning, as there are a number of therapies that target important biomarkers undergoing clinical trials currently. So I've just listed a few examples here of common biomarkers identified in cholangiocarcinoma, for which there is a targeted treatment either in sort of available currently or undergoing clinical trials. One question we asked ourselves is, of the users on our platform who have a diagnosis of cholangiocarcinoma, how many of those have had genetic testing? We were actually really impressed with the answer that we received. So we identified 52 individuals who had had some type of biomarker testing, which was over half of the population. So that was pretty good. There are other types of biomarker testing that we can do as well. And the results of these might inform treatment decisions too. So on some of the reports you may have seen, there might be indications related to microsatellite instability, so microsatellite stable or something like DMMR. We can look at different protein expression patterns within the tumor. A common one is PDL1. And then another feature that is often done on tumors these days is looking at the number of mutations within a certain segment of DNA. And in many cases, these are actually looking at how effective an immunotherapy might be. So we talked about sort of specific targeted genomic therapies, and then we can also look at immunotherapies as well. So with that, I'm actually going to pass things over to Alexa, who's going to share a little bit more information about how we plan to leverage this information to identify new treatments for cholangiocarcinoma.
Thank you, Ellie. So as Ellie mentioned, biomarker testing is becoming increasingly important in cholangiocarcinoma. There's been a lot of conversation in the scientific literature about an awakening of interest in dissecting sort of the molecular and genomic profile of cholangiocarcinoma. recently there has been some literature suggesting that really universal tumor screening and or biomarker testing should be implemented for all cholangiocarcinoma patients. And Dr. Abu Alfa at MSKCC has really recently advocated that this would be the new standard of care for individuals with cholangiocarcinoma to have, you know, at the very least IDH1 mutational testing, if not a more comprehensive biomarker screen. So what we really want to understand is, are all clinicians following this new standard of care and performing biomarker testing on cholangiocarcinoma patients? And the way we can understand this systematically is to conduct a real-world evidence study. Next slide, please. So what is real-world evidence? Some of you may have heard this term sort of floating around. Basically, the distinction that's made is there are clinical trials, which always have been and continue to be the gold standard of drug development research, but there's also a need to understand what happens outside of clinical trials. And so the way that scientists and industry are speaking about this is what is happening in the real world. And so the term is real-world data, which is obtained by looking at data from the standard clinical care, which, for example, your medical records can be a source of real-world data. And then this is used to inform an understanding of treatment patterns and outcomes. The majority of pharma companies now at all phases in the drug development process are using real-world data and real-world evidence derived from that data to inform the development of new products, as well as consider expanded indications for their existing products. Next slide, please. So the FDA has been very vocal about emerging support for real-world evidence from the regulatory perspective. So the 21st Century Cures Act, which was released several years ago, does place a renewed focus on the use of RWE to support the regulatory decision-making. And more recently, you know, the COVID-19 pandemic has actually really pushed forward the cause of RWE in general. It's increased the sense of urgency. The principal deputy commissioner of the FDA, Amy Abernathy, has basically said, because of COVID, we no longer think that we can just sit around and wait for RWE to get to a point where we're willing to accept it. We have to push ourselves and accept RWE now, because there's this urgent need to understand what's happening in hospitals all around the country. So although that's specific to COVID, it has implications for RWE across indications, including oncology. Next slide, please. So thinking about real-world evidence and the question that Ellie framed about how many of our citizens with cholangiocarcinoma have had genetic testing, we have a rough sense of it from a good but relatively small number of patients we have on the platform now. What would happen if we could ask this same question of 250 or 300 citizens with cholangiocarcinoma? That's what turns this kind of look at the data into something that's very powerful, and that's what turns this into real-world evidence, is having that powerful group of 200 or 300 patients we can look at. Next slide, please. So the way that we're looking at this systematically is the new study that we're pleased to share with you today, which is called Real-World Patterns of Oncogenomic Testing in Cholangiocarcinoma, a descriptive study. A complex title, but basically it just combines everything we just described for you. This concept of real-world evidence, of understanding the patterns of care that are happening in the real world, and then understanding the importance of biomarker testing in cholangiocarcinoma, and looking to see if it's being done and how it's being done. So this study has received an institutional review board determination. That means an independent ethics committee has reviewed the protocol that we wrote for this study. And so this study is ready to go. It is approved, and we're excited to launch it. And the way that you can help participate in it is simply to sign up for Citizen, if you haven't yet already, and select yes when you're asked to consent to share your data for research. And that will make sure that your data, your medical history, is included in this study that we're doing that will help us form this real-world evidence around biomarker testing in cholangiocarcinoma. Next slide, please. So just to be very clear, we're talking about sharing your data. We really want to let you know that your privacy is the most important thing to us. When you're sharing your data for research, what you're sharing is a data set that is identified only by a random ID number. There are things that meet a specific regulatory definition of identifiers: your name, your address, your phone number, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, all listed here. These are not included in your research data ever. We will not look at these for research purposes. We will not share these for research purposes. Please reach out to us if you have questions or concerns about this, but we want you all to feel comfortable that your data is very safe with us. So what do we look at? We look at very specific data points from your treatment journey in terms of your diagnosis, the treatments you received, any surgical or other procedures you've received, and specifically for this study, we're looking at the biomarker testing you had done. What kind of test was it? When was it done? What were your results? We can then pull together everybody's data and analyze it in aggregate, and that will really help us understand things like what % of cholangiocarcinoma patients are getting this testing? What type of testing is commonly performed? At what point in the diagnosis or treatment journey is the testing done? Is it done right at the time you're diagnosed? Is it done at the time you progress on treatment and are looking to change treatments? What's sort of the treatment journey around that? And then what are the common results? What are we finding the IDH1 and other common mutations in the general population that have been suggested to be important in cholangiocarcinoma? Next, please. So what are we going to do with these findings? As described, we're going to look for patterns for biomarker testing and how it's done. And then we really want to publish these findings in a scientific journal or a conference setting. As a reminder, your name, all these other identifiers that could be used to sort of put the pieces back together of who you are, these will never appear in the publication. It will be summary level findings. So it will only be sort of descriptions of the data as a group. Never any individual data. And then the next phase of the study that we're going to roll out after we finish that analysis is a survey phase. Really excited about that phase. It's basically going to be a way for you to make your voice heard. We can tell from the data, did you receive the testing? When was it done? What were the results? But what we want to hear is, what was that experience like for you? Did your doctor bring it up, or did you have to bring it up to your doctor? Did you feel informed and in control of the process? Did you have to pay a lot out of pocket for it? What did your doctor do with the results? And this will really help us even better understand the landscape of what this experience is like for those of you living with cholangiocarcinoma and having this testing done, so we can really inform better treatment in the future. Next slide, please. So as I've said, your experience is your voice. Your data is your voice. We really want to hear from you. And the way to do that right now is to sign up for Citizen, select yes to sharing for research, encourage your friends to join. The power is in the numbers. So the more of your friends who can join, the more powerful this data will be, and the more real world evidence we will have that we can bring to the scientific community. I want to turn it back to Melinda now to speak a little bit more about how we can make this happen and really support the power of this research together.
Absolutely. So I think we should probably maybe do some polling questions. Alexa and Ellie, are you guys ready for that first?
Sure.
Rick, you want to go ahead with poll question number 1? We're going to go ahead and poll the audience, and then we'll do the results. But we have a few questions we want to get answered, and then also we are going to open up the Q&A section. So if you guys have any questions out there about what Ellie and Alexa just presented, you can type your question into the Q&A box, and we will get those questions answered. So question number 1: have you heard of genomic testing before? We'll give you just a few seconds, and then Rick will do a countdown, and we'll see what the results are.
It looks like we have about 77% of people have answered. So let's give it another 5 seconds. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Great.
That's pretty good.
Yeah.
Good to know. We got to find that one person who doesn't. And let's do the next one, Rick. How can the results of genomic testing be helpful? Once again, I keep trying to do this, and I cannot participate.
We're about at 70%. So let's do 5 more seconds. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. It's a smart audience.
Yes,
Yay.
definitely agreed. Alexa and Ellie, we have a question. I'm going to go ahead and take that right now for you guys. So Jacob says, will trial be on clinicaltrials.gov? Will there be slides available to review the clinical trial program to share for educational purposes?
Thanks for your question, Jacob. So to clarify, the study that I've described today isn't a clinical trial. It's what's called an observational trial, which means there's no drug being tested or administered. It's more to understand additional details about the existing treatment patterns that are on the market. So that said, we will not be putting it on clinicaltrials.gov because we like to save clinicaltrials.gov for the actual interventional new drug trials and not sort of clog it with observational trials. So patients like you have an easier time finding the trials that do have new drugs for you to try. But I will say it is very important. And in fact, it's an almost easier way to contribute to research than participating in a clinical trial, depending upon your situation. You can participate from home. You don't have to go to a doctor or a clinical site. Just by signing up for Citizen and sharing your data, you can have a voice in this study.
Yes,
and we're happy to share the slides with information.
Good. And this webinar will be recorded and posted on our website so that we can go back through it and you can maybe get more information and we'll definitely share it with others. And we will have the website up, the link up. I'm sure Rick can put that in our chat and our Q&A for you guys all to be able to enroll in Citizen so that you can sign up to participate in this study. Another question. Oops. I think the question is there a cost to sign up for Citizen?
No, that's a really great question. And that's something we feel really strongly about. Citizen's entire mission is based around the idea that it's your health, it's your medical records, it's your data, and it belongs to you. By no means should you have to pay for us to get it for you and give it to you. So it is free, always has been and always will be.
Okay, I am going to just go through a few more questions, if that's all right, because they're coming in. Isn't Citizen only for patients? What did Ellie mean about inviting friends?
Oh, so I think it was me who said inviting friends. So I'll take it unless Ellie wants to chime in. Good clarification. And yes, I think what we meant is your cholangiocarcinoma friends. So look, we have a great relationship with the Cholangiocarcinoma Foundation and a ton of respect for you all. And we realize that you all have relationships with fellow patients who may not be on this call today. So those are the friends that we'd like to encourage you to reach out to and have sign up for Citizen.
Okay, and this is a good question too from Marilyn. I want to wait until I get my PET scan results following chemo in a week or two before I get all my records approved for research in Citizen. Is that okay to wait until then for the July project? Or is this something that they could go ahead and consent to and then those records would be updated?
Yeah, Ellie, do you want to speak to maybe the clinical process of how the record collection?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
So that's a really great question. And really, there's no need to wait unless you want to. You can sign up today and we will collect the records that are available today. And then we actually have an option for you to refresh your request. So say you collect your records today and then tomorrow you have a PET scan and you really want those results added. You can actually now go and re-request your records to include the updated information. And to be honest, that's actually really helpful for us because real world evidence is useful when we are looking at things that are happening in the real world. And so as new treatments and new sort of milestones in your care are being achieved or coming along, it's actually helpful for you to refresh your records so that we can update your profile and make sure that the information we're reflecting back to you is most current and most accurate.
Awesome, thank you for that. One more on this one, let's see. From the info Citizen collects, will they be directing patients to possible trials, treatments, doctors, which might be good for them? So I don't know if you guys want to touch on that about what's coming.
I feel like Sophia might know the most about it.
Okay, sorry, Sophia, and I could jump in there too.
No, I'll jump back in. As Melinda mentioned at the beginning of this webinar, everyone's incredible participation over the last year means that we're able to launch these exciting initiatives. we will be launching in July a service that allows you to use your citizen profile and all of the health records maintained in that citizen profile to automatically be screened for clinical trials that you might be eligible for. We are so excited to be bringing this to the community. We've been working hard on it for over 6 months and hope that it will be a really powerful application of the valuable information already located in your health records. In this case, towards a service that will help you navigate options and potential treatment options. But I think these two initiatives that we're launching together this summer really point to the fact that your medical records are incredibly valuable to you and your community. This real-world genomics study that Alexa and Ellie have spoken about is research, whereas the clinical trial detection solution will be a tool for you to navigate your care. Both are really important in terms of furthering our understanding of cholangiocarcinoma and driving research. They're just of slightly different flavors, but both powered by your citizen profile. And something that we can expect moving forward as more and more people join the platform and we continue to partner together is to continue to build initiatives like this that both support this incredible community, but also further the scientific understanding of the disease. So, lots of exciting things ahead, but we need your help by signing up, participating, giving us your feedback, sharing your experience so that we can keep making Citizen better. So thank you, everyone, as well.
Well said, Sophia. Thank you. Rick, do you want to do the next poll? Have you had genomic or biomarker testing done?
All right. We're just at about 60%, so let's give it another 5 seconds. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Okay, so about 10 have no, and I think the follow-up question maybe asks why. Do you have that next poll? There you go. If you haven't had genomic or biomarker testing done, why not? And if you haven't and you don't understand it or you don't have access or you need help with that, please feel free to reach out to me at the foundation and I can help with that process. Melinda.Bachini, B-A-C-H-I-N-I at cholangiocarcinoma.org.
All right, this one's a little bit less because everybody else had it done, so here you go.
Definitely have to change that.
And research like this is how we change it. It's by bringing together the voice and experience of this entire community in a real-world evidence research study, publishing the results and getting it in front of doctors so they understand the importance. So I agree, Melinda, let's change it.
Yes, absolutely. So some of these questions, I'm gonna go through the questions and we'll answer what we can. Some I probably might not have answers to, but I hopefully will help you, and whatever ones I don't get to today, we'll answer and we'll get back to you, or we'll get you the answer or to someone who can answer it for you. So Shelley had asked, I had genetic testing early on and was told I have Fgfr2, but only recently, 1 year later, I was made aware that I had other genetic mutations. Why wasn't this shared with me from the onset? And that is a good question. And I will tell you that if you did upload your records, you would have your genomic profiling available to you so that you would have access to that and be able to, you know, to discuss it with your doctor, ask questions about it, or get second opinions or enter into clinical trials. So one more reason that it would be good to upload your records and have control of your records instead of only hearing, what you're told. So go ahead.
I'm sorry. I was just going to add too that sometimes that happens because, we're actually testing more genes than we really know what to do with right now. So sometimes it's possible that you have a change in a gene and we can't really do anything with that information just yet. It doesn't mean that you can't hear about it and learn about it. So, to Melinda's point, it's very helpful to have access to your report and it really belongs to you. But it is possible that there are genetic findings that are not going to be useful for managing your treatment in this moment.
Right. At this moment, that is the key word. We don't know what tomorrow brings. So it's always good to have those. So Gail says, my dad was just diagnosed and it is advanced. Within the foundation, is there a recommendation or rating on where to get a second opinion? Gail, I would be more than happy to help you, and I will reach out to you after the webinar. Terry says, what's the difference between Foundation 1 testing and genomic testing? I've been told that Foundation 1 testing resulted in me not being a candidate for immunotherapy. Does this mean that I'm not a candidate for clinical trials? So you guys can answer, but I'm just going to say what I know, and then you guys can give a better answer. So they are the same. Foundation 1 is a company that does do genomic testing, and there's several companies out there that do. And just because you may not have the right markers for immunotherapy trials does not mean you are not a candidate for clinical trials. So once again, I'm more than happy to help you search for clinical trials, and we'll reach out to you after the webinar. And Alexa and Ellie, if you have anything more to add to that.
Just that this is a really busy space. There are a lot of different labs offering very similar services. Some panels are more comprehensive than others. So it's always a good idea to work with people like Melinda to just make sure that the testing offered to you was actually as comprehensive as possible and you're not sort of inadvertently being excluded. But companies like Foundation, Caris, Guardant are essentially all offering a very, very similar product.
Yeah. And that is actually one of the things we're going to be looking at in the study, right? Is not just was the testing done generally, but because we do have access to that data, we can describe it really accurately. Was it Foundation testing? Was it another provider? And again, really begin to understand the landscape a little better, so we know, who's doing the majority of this testing, and just begin to be able to facilitate those relationships a little better for patients.
Awesome. We've got a lot of questions and stuff, you guys, so I'm going to keep going because we still have some time. Is that all right? Okay, good. I think this is a comment for you, Citizen. I'm already set up with Citizen. They helped coordinate physician and lab testing collection. Medical record administrators seem to believe HIPAA prevents electronic copies to be provided to Citizen. Citizen administrators set them straight. A great patient advocate. Yay. Good work.
Thank you. That's why
I was just diagnosed last week, and genomic biomarker testing is planned by my doctor. That is also good to hear, Roger. Love that. It's how I would like it with every patient. Another comment, some doctors in regional cancer centers are hesitant in terms of genetic testing because they are having challenges getting it approved by the insurance companies. Do you guys have any comments on that? If not, I will throw in what I know.
Yeah. Ellie, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, the only thing I will say from my clinical experience is that most labs offer some subsidized payment programs. So if there's hesitation that a test might not be covered by insurance, it's always worth reaching out to the lab to understand what their patient payment options are. In the space that I worked in most frequently, we were able to offer testing for as low as $250, which is not nothing, but it's something you could work towards.
Agreed. And I see that that most of them do have financial assistance programs, so we could connect you with those programs for whichever testing company is being used. And for the most part, I've seen across the cholangiocarcinoma community that all patients are getting their testing done, and having some help making sure that that happens. And also with the recent approval of pemigatinib, the NCCN guidelines are now recommending it, so that's going to be a little more helpful to get insurance coverage as well. And that's the next question: what can be done to influence insurance companies of the importance of this testing? Things like this study, for sure, and the changes of the NCCN guidelines will make a big difference. The insurance companies go off of those guidelines, ASCO guidelines, different guidelines like that to use for payment processes. So I'd still like to see the NCCN guidelines changed a little bit more so that testing is getting done upfront and not just recommended, but saying definitely have it done. But those are all helpful, and appeal your insurance company if they deny it the first time.
Yeah. It's exactly right,
Melinda.
Melinda. It's exactly where the type of research that we're looking to support, because the first step is sort of understanding what testing is being done and when and how. And then the next step is to tie that to outcomes, right? So to be able to demonstrate through this real world evidence that the patients who are having testing done earlier are perhaps having more targeted treatments prescribed to them and therefore having better long-term outcomes. That's really the body of evidence that we're looking to help develop for you all. So the research participation definitely is a key part of it.
Absolutely. That's why we want to get as many as possible participating in this research so we can make a difference in moving the science forward. How often
Melinda,
should you retest? Oh, go ahead, Sophia.
Melinda,
sorry.
quickly, I want to just echo how important it is to advocate for yourself within your insurance company. As a patient and patient advocate, I can't tell you how difficult they make this, yet the reality is there's a lot of avenues to reapply and to challenge coverage rulings, and actually the good work of patients who are fighting back on what is and isn't covered is a part of also changing that coverage criteria. And so really as a community, I think we have to hit it from every angle possible. And while it's, I think appalling that so much of this falls on the shoulders of patients, there is avenues and abilities for you to challenge those reimbursements. And so know your power, and actually having your records on Citizen is another great way to make that case and to show and to basically advocate for yourself with data, which is yours. So you got to fight for yourself, unfortunately.
We're our own best advocates, and
yes.
and it makes all the difference in the world. How often should you retest? And I know that's going to be different among physicians. I will say from the cholangiocarcinoma perspective, what we would like to see is retesting on progression or recurrence. And go ahead, Alexa and Ellie, add to that if you'd like.
No, the only comment I would make too is that the space is changing pretty quickly. And so there are different ways that we could be testing more frequently to track things like progression or response to therapy. And I think, if those things are not already occurring now, are probably going to become much more common in the future.
Okay. When a new gene mutation is identified, can previous genome testing be reviewed for the mutation, or is retesting needed? Not sure I understand that question, but in my mind, this is my feeble way of thinking, so I'm going to do my patient version of that. When they do the testing, when it's a tissue testing, you're getting a snippet of that tumor because it's just a core sample, right? So you're not seeing the whole landscape of all the tumors. So it may not be necessarily true that the genomic mutations change, but we might have missed it the first time. Please correct me if I'm wrong and make it right.
So let me know if I'm misinterpreting this, but the way I interpreted the question was that if you have a set number of genes on a test that was looked at today, and tomorrow another gene is added to that panel, can you now ask for that new gene to be included in your test? So please comment and tell me if I got that wrong. It will depend on the underlying mechanics of the test that was ordered. Some labs actually test for a broad number of genes and only report out a selection. So it is possible that maybe that gene was already included and they can actually surface that information to you without needing a new tissue sample or to run the assay again. But in other cases, if it was not built into that original test, it may be required that you repeat the testing. So that's a really good thing to sort of keep an eye on. If your testing was done a little bit ago, especially because this is such an active area of research, it's worth revisiting over time if there are new biomarkers that you want to ensure your testing included.
Awesome. Shelley's just sharing with us that when she was first diagnosed, she was told she had some type of gastric cancer, but they couldn't identify the source. and it was through the genetic testing that helped the doctor determine it was cholangiocarcinoma. And Fred, please reach out to me and let's see what I can do to help you try to get a PET scan approved through your insurance. That's always different from insurance company to insurance company as well. Do we have another poll question, Rick? Have you and your doctors made decisions about your care based on biomarker information? So based on the testing that you received on the results, were decisions made about your care and treatment?
Okay, let's give it another 5 seconds. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Computer froze. Hold on 1 second. Oh, it's thinking about it. It doesn't show results. 63% said yes. 37% said no.
Interesting.
Yeah, I mean that's huge, right? That's a good direction to know that because of the testing, it led to a treatment. There we go.
There we go. Sorry about that.
It's all right. Okay, I think we have a few more questions back in the chat room. Let me look here. Rick, can you tell which ones I've missed?
Yeah. Let's see. Here's one. From the information citizen collects, will they be directing patients to possible trials, treatments, doctors, which might be good for them?
I think we did that one.
Yep, okay.
Okay.
Where on the citizen site does it ask you to sign, or where does it ask to sign up to have records included for research?
Sure, I'm happy to answer this. So when you sign up, there is a consent at the end of the onboarding flow asking you if you would like to participate in research. Now, Citizens' philosophy is that you always have the choice and you always have the ability to change your mind. And so if you go into your profile under My Info, you always have the ability to update that preference. There's going to be a new product release coming later this month that we're really excited for you all to get to experience. Basically, every 6 weeks we have product releases, and again, this is where your feedback and your experience is really invaluable as we continue to improve the platform. One of those enhancements is going to be a section devoted entirely to consent, so that it isn't buried in My Info. It's actually going to be front and center in one of the main tabs of the platform, and it'll be a very transparent and easy way for you to understand exactly what you are consenting for and make the selection that is appropriate for you at that time. So that'll be coming in about 2 weeks, but in the meantime, under My Info, you can make that selection.
And I just want to put in a plug that we're going to be doing another webinar July 9th talking about the privacy and protection of your records with Devin McGraw. And then also Sophia and Devin possibly will be, I know Sophia will for sure be speaking at our virtual conference.
Yes, and Devin will also be participating. She's really looking forward to meeting many of you. She is a leading health privacy expert, has spent decades fighting for all of our rights in the space, and she really looks forward to both that webinar on July 9th and being a part of the virtual conference towards the end of July.
Awesome. Okay, so Geraldine wants to know, do mutations change over time?
Great question. So, when I think about cancer genetics, the word that comes to mind is chaos. So things are changing, evolving very rapidly. So that is absolutely true. The sort of genetic makeup of a cancer can evolve over time.
Okay, so Karen wants to know, her husband has metastatic extrahepatic cholangiocarcinoma. He's had several samples sent to Guardant Foundation and Tempest. None have shown any mutations or alterations. Is this unusual?
Good question. I don't know that it's unusual because really we really only know how to look for specific findings right now. So it could be that he has a genetic finding that we just haven't figured out we need to pay attention to yet. So we're kind of looking for what we know how to look for. So it's not necessarily unusual. And then sort of to everyone's point here, we hope that as our knowledge and our technology improves, that will change over time.
Okay, let's see. What are some markers important to the treatment of cholangiocarcinoma other than FGFR and IDH1? If you guys have any clue on that one. I know there's a lot of other biomarkers out there. I think you talked about BRAF earlier. I just saw through ASCO that the RET mutation might show some options for cholangiocarcinoma patients. What else do we have? We have the NTRK. I could go on, but I can also get you that information later. And Ellie and Alexa, jump in.
No, I kind of put the main ones on the slides here that you saw. So there are a handful of genetic markers that are used for some more targeted treatments, and then the markers for response to immunotherapy. But there are certainly a lot of others that are sort of either have early supportive evidence or the evidence is still a little bit mixed. So it sounds like Melinda is very much on the pulse with all of that.
Yeah, feel free to reach out to me again and I can get a list of common mutations in cholangiocarcinoma with possible clinical trials or treatments. I've read that tumor samples taken from the center of tumor can lack some of the mutations that seem to be more prominent in the outer area of tumors, such as PD-L1, indicating testing should be done in multiple areas of the tumor site. Is this your understanding? That I have no idea. We might have to default, yeah, to maybe sending that to a doctor and finding out maybe, unless you guys know.
No, I've just started reading a couple papers that talk about the same thing, just sort of, when you think about tissue staining, it's really important to be able to see the architecture of a sample. So what do things look like in different parts of the tissue? But to your point, for things like biomarker testing, we don't necessarily care where things are and what they look like. We just want to know if they're present. So I think a lot of people are starting to ask the same types of questions.
Yeah. Okay, so Fred says the last question is confusing. My oncologist is happy with the chemo treatment for the past 6 months. He had gene testing done. He had discussed some treatments down the road. Gene testing has not influenced his decision making for treatment at this time. But I would say to that comment, then that's good that there's a plan B, C coming down the road, and what's working now is working now, and that's what we all want as patients, is to have a plan A, B, C, and take whatever treatment you have that's working now for as long as you can ride that treatment, and then be ready for the next one. I think we answered all the questions. If there's any more, feel free to. Oop, there we go. One more. Feel free to throw them in the question box. Can you discuss the difference in treatment and side effects of immunotherapy versus chemo? Only from what I hear. You got to remember, I am not a doctor, so Alexa and Ellie, I'm gonna, if you don't want to answer that, I can sure find out for you.
Yeah, I would say, make sure you speak with your doctor, because people can make broad statements about, chemotherapy and immunotherapy, but even within those categories, there's many different products that have many different profiles in terms of the common side effects. And even within that, it can vary a lot patient to patient, right? Depending on your individual body and how you respond to the individual treatments. So it's hard to make a blanket statement. I would say definitely talk to your doctor about those concerns and make sure that you're weighing, all the factors into your treatment decisions in terms of what you can expect in terms of side effects, as well as how effective a treatment will be for your particular case. Absolutely.
Rick, do we have one more poll question?
We do. We have one very last poll question. It's about joining Citizen. The results of this poll will not be shared with everybody, so just feel free to answer openly and honestly.
All right, and so oh, never mind, we'll do it. I'm interested in joining Citizen and participating in this important research. Go ahead and put your answers, and then we will follow up and get back to you for depending on what you answered. And then I am just going to throw out, if you have any other questions, feel free to throw them out there to us. And if you want to send me questions, I can forward them on to Ellie and Alexa and Sophia and get all your answers, back to you as soon as possible. And then, Rick, I don't know if you had the opportunity to put the Citizen CCF link up,
I will do it right now.
but we could sure do that. And there's my email. And I can connect you with everyone at Citizen, you know, depending on the question. We'll make sure you have the right connections. And I just want to throw out there the ease of uploading your records, the ease of participating with Citizen. It literally takes no more than 10 minutes to go in, request your records, take a picture of your driver's license, and it is so easy. And if you have difficulties with it, they have a wonderful person to help you through that process. You just have to click on the little icon. What does it say? It says help me or something like that. Connect with us, and they will get back to you and help you through the process right away.
And actually, Mikkel is on the call. I don't know if she can wave on video with how Zoom is structured, but Mikkel
I can do it.
would be happy. Oh, sorry, Mikkel, to put you on the spot. But she would be happy to work with you one-on-one to get you set up. We recognize you might have questions, and honestly, sometimes it's just nicer to go through it with someone else. And so on the website, you can sign up for time with Mikkel, or you can reach out to her anytime. So, oh, and there she is.
Yay.
Hey everyone. I'm always available. Reach out if you have any questions or any problems.
Yeah, very easy process. And if you're technologically challenged like I am, Mikkel will help you through it. And I just want to say that I am technologically challenged, and I was able to do it no problem. So that is good. Please reach out to us if you have any questions. Alexa, Ellie, Sophia, anything else we want to get out to them? We do have 8 minutes left, so feel free.
I just want to thank you, Melinda and Rick, and the community so much for having us today. Your partnership means a lot to us, and we're really excited to continue working with you all.
Great, and I'm just going to throw some comments that came in. No questions, but just wanted all of you guys to know everyone said good job, and they appreciate the webinar. So super happy about that. Please, everyone who joined today, we're going to have a post-webinar survey sent out to you immediately. If you would take that and respond, we will use your information to better our programs and to get your information to Citizen. So if that's it, we will say goodbye. Thank you all so much. I think that was excellent. You answered a lot of my questions as well. We're going to record it, get it up on the website, and we'll share it through our social media channels. So feel free to share with other patients and caregivers who didn't get a chance to join.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, everyone. Take care.
Thank you.